Marvel Rivals keeps pumping out so much content that I honestly can't keep up. And with every new banging hero, it's literally never anything anyone wants. Not to mention, the amount of tanks that get released are never anything that can have a defined purpose in the game's metas. Every time a new tank gets released, the meta somehow shifts in such a way to the point where GUANG and GUANG take them out back, push them on the curb, and then make them eat it.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
So today, I've created a few ideas for who could be a tank, their kits, and their overall purpose and what niche they would fill. The first one up is Iceman. The amount of tanks in Marvel Rivals, like I said, is stupidly low. And among those tanks, only 4 of them can consistently solo tank, either because of their insane brawling skills, high health pools, or mobility. With this in mind, I chose Iceman to be one of the tanks in Marvel Rivals. Iceman, according to Wikipedia, can freeze water vapor around him, which allows him to freeze himself alongside other things around him. Because of this, he can make various ice-related things. Duh. Including projectiles, shields, walls, and melee weapons. Using this, his kit could have 2 modes similar to Emma Frost. In this state, he would have a primary fire that shoots 3 ice projectiles at Yeah, sorry, my bad. He would have a primary fire that shoots 3 ice projectiles in a burst like a FAMAS, or the Fortnite kids know it as the OG Burst Assault Rifle. Random side note, it's been 8 years since that shit. If you didn't feel old, now you do. Alongside being in this range state, he would have an ice wall he can place that changes dynamically off a resource. Meaning instead of Groot walls that are straight lines and having 2 separate versions with specific amounts of HP, Iceman can draw a line however he wants, which can cut off longer chokes like the choke on the Convergence Wakanda map or Spider Islands. Finally, Iceman would have an ice floor that allows himself and teammates to travel faster on. Think something similar to Spellbreak if you can remember that dead game. This would make it so that in this range state, Iceman can kinda play a nice middle ground, getting picks like Mag and Strange from range, while still being able to have a unique aspect that allows for protection and counterplay. Also, he wouldn't be like Penny Parker, where she's only really good at defense convergence maps nowadays. But that's not all my design for Iceman has, because he has a melee state. In his melee state, his body would grow slightly and his fists especially would get a size increase. This would also give him a small grant of maximum health, but more specifically the blue health, not the white health. His primary fire would be a simple punch kind of attack similar to Emma Frost, but he would also have attacks that resemble Rogue, being able to chain them together to lab combos. Some moves that I was thinking of were as follows: an ice slide that can become an engagement starter or an execution tool, an ice spike where he stomps and ice spikes come up in a cone pattern, and an ice bomb where he'll take his fists, put them together, and then slam downward. Having a melee state in place, this makes Iceman capable of being an off and main tank as needed, especially since I initially thought of him having a straight toggle between melee and range states, but out loud I think that's a bit much. I'm not GUANG, I'm just creating theoretical design. Finally, the ultimate. I actually had 2 ideas for Iceman's Ultimate 1. Similar to Rogue and Daredevil, a giant circle would pull up around him, and any enemies that are in that circle for too long will get the freeze effect. In Ultimate number 2, where in a cone area, Iceman slams down and ice spikes damage and freeze the enemy, where the spikes would come up instantly but not have nearly as much range as someone like the Thing, who's the same thing but just slamming rocks in the ground. With that is my theoretical design for Iceman's kit if he were to be put in the game. Although, now that I'm looking at this design, if GUANG were to actually put this in the game, he would probably be the first broken tank. We haven't had something like that since Gamma Strange. Man, can we please bring back Gamma Strange? If you're not living under a rock, you already know who this guy is. But if you somehow just do not watch Marvel movies, War Machine is basically a slightly lamer looking version of Iron Man. He can fly and do all the fun Iron Man things, but the only difference is that he uses straight American-made firepower. And he's also slightly bigger than Iron Man, due to how many bullets he has to have in his back. But if he were to be a tank, he would be a long-ranged aerial tank using bullets and explosives to control both the air and the land. His primary fire would be a machine gun, duh, having 30 to 60 bullets depending on the damage and firing speed. If the damage was overall lower, then give him a faster fire rate and vice versa. War Machine would also have a secondary fire that's just explosives, but only being able to have 2 rounds before it goes on cooldown. Obviously, he would be able to fly like Iron Man, being in the regular standing flying, and the faster flying state. Finally, his ult would be a carpet bombing, where he transforms similar to Penny Parker and gets to fly freely, dropping bombs from above. And to help himself out, he can also have 2 turrets that shoot directly forward that also allow him to deal with the flyers directly in front of him. This makes it so that he's a threat to both flyers and ground characters, and doesn't have to sacrifice it just because he wants to ult the ground. War Machine has a lot less complexity going on with him, but I did that on purpose. The only other flying hero in the game, Angela, can't really act as a main tank, but War Machine being this big guy in the air allows for him to be a flying main tank that can also take care of the flyers. For tank players, this means you don't have to choose Mag or Strange every time there's a from the enemy team, but just match it and then give them America.
I am inevitable.
Ever since this game came out, and with Marvel Rivals also pumping out MCU content throughout this year, I thought I'd like to try my hand at making the big bad grape himself. Now, when designing him in my head, I was very, very, very careful to not make him stupidly broken. So no, there won't be any snapping people out of existence. As fun as that would be, Thanos would actually have to be a permaban and ranked, or locked out of ranked altogether, because if I was on my rank up game for the 5th time that night and you're telling me I lost because Thanos just got his ult and just killed me when I didn't even get to see him because he ulted in spawn, it's immediately to Sayori for me. When trying to think of how to actually design this glorified cup of promethazine, there's a lot to think about. Infinity Stones, what they do, how he used them in the movies, weapons he used, blah 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 blah. But after like hours of reading Wikipedia articles, I think I know how all of it's gonna work. First, Thanos will be using his big ol' sword when in his regular state, with his primary fire, him swing around the sword with an up, down, and slam combo. I designed it this way because, well, that's just kind of how the 2 blades operate. Then, for his mobility, to emphasize his brawling abilities, he's able to jump up and then slam downward. An easy way to visualize this is using the Fortnite x Avengers collab, except, well, instead of a fist, it's the sword. I tried to incorporate something for all the stones, but there's nothing I could really do for the Time and Soul Stone because that would either make some characters obsolete or cause more harm than good. But with the rest of the stones, the one you would use would be dependent on a given tier, similar to Deadpool's ult. Then, each stone has its own unique effects, such as the Reality Stone, which applies disorient and debuffs to the enemy, like seeing false clones or getting blind effect. The Power Stone would just be himself getting a buff state, getting more speed and damage for a while. And then finally, the Mind Stone, which would allow for a big ranged beam projectile to come out of his gauntlet. This would also be similar to Fortnite's version of the attack, but would also still leave Thanos susceptible to CC, and the projectiles can be countered with Magneto Ultimate or any big amount of damage shot back at Thanos. The kit for Thanos makes him more of a brawl character, but has the big power potential that everyone thinks of when they think of
I am inevitable.
And it doesn't make him so broken to the point where he becomes a quick play merchant 24/7 like Elsa Bloodstone and Daredevil are now. In my mind, he would also struggle a lot without a second tank, but that's just for the sake of balance. If we had more accurate stats from Marvel Rivals heroes completely, then Adam Warlock would be absolutely soloing a good chunk of the roster. Anyway, that's all for my tank additions I think would be really cool to see. If you have any heroes that you think would be cool to add, or if you think my kit ideas suck, are good, drop a comment. I'd love to hear about it. Make sure to like, sub, and share this video as it helps a lot. And with that, I love you all. Thanks for watching, and I'm gone.